There is a strange contradiction in modern life. Most people are exhausted, yet most people keep saying yes. Yes to requests they don't want to fulfill. Yes to obligations they don't have time for. Yes to conversations that drain them. And yes to expectations they never actually agreed to carry. Slowly, without realizing it, they build a life that belongs to everyone except themselves. Maybe you've felt this. Maybe you've promised yourself that. Next time, I'll speak up. Next time, I'll set a boundary. Next time, I'll stop people pleasing. But when the moment arrives, you say yes again. And then later you feel frustrated. Not just with the other person, but with yourself. You wonder, why is this so hard? Why can't I just say no? And why do I feel guilty every single time I put myself first? If that sounds familiar, this audiobook is for you. Because the ability to say no is not a communication skill. It is an identity skill. It's not about rejecting other people. It is about accepting responsibility for your own life. Over the next hour, we're going to uncover why saying no feels so difficult, why guilt shows up the moment you try, and how to develop boundaries without becoming cold, selfish, or disconnected. This isn't about being aggressive. It's not about winning arguments. It's about becoming someone who respects their own energy enough to protect it. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Why saying no feels impossible. The biggest frustration isn't that people ask too much of you. No. The biggest frustration is that you know you should say no. But somehow you still say yes. And then you spend hours regretting it. You replay conversations in your mind. You imagine what you should have said. You feel trapped by commitments you never wanted. And eventually, you start believing there's something wrong with you. But here's the truth that most people never understand. The struggle to say no is not a character flaw. It is a survival strategy. And understanding this changes everything. When you were growing up, approval often felt like safety. When people were happy with you, life felt easier. When people were disappointed, angry, or critical, life felt uncomfortable. So, your brain learned a powerful lesson. Keep people happy. It wasn't because you were weak. It wasn't because you lacked confidence. It was because your brain was doing exactly what it was designed to do. It was trying to protect you. Over time, that protection became automatic. You learned to avoid conflict. You learned to avoid disappointment. You learned to avoid judgment. Every time you said yes, your brain received a reward, temporary peace, temporary acceptance, temporary relief. The problem is that temporary relief creates long-term suffering. Most people never notice the trade. They sacrifice themselves, little by little, one unnecessary commitment, one unwanted favor, one ignored need at a time, until they wake up completely exhausted. Many people believe, if I just become more confident, then I'll say no. But confidence is rarely the real issue. You probably know people who are incredibly confident in many areas of life, yet they still struggle with boundaries. Why? Because saying no activates something deeper than confidence. It activates fear. The fear of disappointing others. The fear of being misunderstood. The fear of losing connection. Whenever fear enters the room, logic often leaves. Think of your life like a bank account. Every commitment is a withdrawal. Every obligation is a withdrawal. Now, imagine making withdrawals all day long without ever checking the balance. Eventually, something happens. The account runs dry. That is exactly what happens to you, emotionally. You become mentally tired, resentful, and physically drained. Not because you're incapable, but because you are overcommitted. The world celebrates productivity, but your nervous system measures capacity. And those two things are not the same. So, I want you to try a simple exercise. Imagine a circle around your life. Inside that circle exists your time, your energy, your focus, and your peace of mind. Now, imagine every request as someone standing outside that circle, asking for entry. Most of us just open the gate automatically. Starting today, I want you to practice one simple question before every commitment. What will this cost me? Not money. I mean, what will this cost my energy, my attention, and my emotional capacity? Ask it, and listen to the answer. Because that awareness is where every healthy boundary begins. You do not have unlimited energy. You do not have unlimited time. So, protecting those resources is not selfish. It is responsible. Your effectiveness, your peace, and your future depend on your boundaries. For years, you've blamed yourself for struggling to say no. But that struggle was never proof that you're weak. It was proof that your brain was prioritizing safety. Now you're learning something new. You're learning that every yes carries a cost, and every no creates space. Space for your goals, space for your peace, and space for the life you actually want to build. In the next chapter, we're going to explore one of the biggest obstacles to those boundaries, the guilt that appears the moment you finally decide to put yourself first. Chapter 2: The Guilt Trap. Why saying no feels wrong even when it's right. You finally decide to protect your time. You promise yourself, this time will be different. You know you should say no. You know you're already overwhelmed. You know saying yes will just create more stress. But then, something happens. A feeling appears, guilt. Suddenly, the problem is no longer the request. The problem is the discomfort rising inside you. And to make that discomfort disappear, you say yes. Not because you want to, but because you want relief. This is one of the most important truths about boundaries. Most people do not struggle to say no. They struggle to tolerate the guilt that follows. Guilt is not always a signal that you're doing something wrong. Sometimes, guilt is simply a signal that you're doing something different. Think about that. If you've spent years putting other people's needs ahead of your own, setting a boundary will feel unfamiliar. And anything unfamiliar often feels uncomfortable. Your mind interprets that discomfort as danger. It says, maybe you're being selfish. Maybe you're hurting someone. Maybe you're making a mistake. But discomfort and wrongdoing are not the same thing. A new behavior often feels wrong before it feels normal. Many of us learn an unspoken rule growing up. Good people always help. Good people always agree. Good people never disappoint others, and they never create conflict. At first glance, these ideas sound noble. But taken to an extreme, they become destructive. Because eventually, you start believing that your worth depends on your usefulness. You stop asking, "What do I need?" and start asking, "What will make everyone else happy?" The result? You become responsible for emotions that were never yours to manage. Let's imagine something for a moment. Imagine your job description was simply, keep everyone happy at all times. Could you succeed? Of course not. It's impossible. Yet many people unconsciously accept this responsibility. They spend years trying to manage everyone's reactions, everyone's opinions, and everyone's expectations. And because the task is impossible, they constantly feel like they're failing. The truth is simple: you are responsible for your actions. You are not responsible for everyone's emotional response to those actions. That distinction changes everything. People-pleasing creates a dangerous cycle. You say yes. The other person is happy. Your guilt disappears. Your brain learns. Perfect. Do that again. But the relief doesn't last. Soon, another request arrives. And another. Over time, your life becomes controlled by avoiding guilt, rather than pursuing purpose. This is why people-pleasing feels so exhausting. It solves today's discomfort by creating tomorrow's burden. Here's a powerful shift. Instead of asking, "Will they be upset?" ask yourself, "Am I being honest?" Notice the difference. One question focuses on controlling their emotions. The other focuses on your integrity. Because the goal is not to make everyone happy. The goal is to be truthful. If you're overwhelmed, be truthful. If you're unavailable, be truthful. If you don't want to do something, be truthful. Truth creates temporary discomfort. Dishonesty creates long-term suffering. The next time someone asks something of you, imagine two futures. In future 1, you say yes. Now, pay attention to your body. Do you feel lighter or heavier? In future 2, you respectfully say no. Again, notice your body. Do you feel lighter or heavier? Your body often knows the answer before your mind does. Many people discover something surprising. The guilt of saying no lasts a few minutes. The resentment of saying yes can last for weeks. Most people respond too quickly. They feel pressure, and pressure creates automatic decisions. Instead, develop a new habit. Never give immediate permission. Use phrases like, "Let me think about it. I'll check my schedule. I'll get back to you. Give me some time to consider it." This creates space. And space is where good decisions live. Remember, a rushed yes is often an expensive yes. If we're being honest, guilt is often hiding a deeper fear. The fear of rejection. The fear of abandonment. The fear of losing connection. But relationships built entirely on compliance are fragile. Because they aren't built on authenticity. They're built on performance. Real relationships survive boundaries. In fact, healthy relationships become stronger because of them. The people who genuinely care about you may not love every boundary you set, but they will learn to respect them. And the people who only valued your ability to say yes, those relationships reveal themselves very quickly. Tonight, take 5 minutes. Grab a notebook. Write down 3 situations where you recently said yes, but wanted to say no. Beside each situation, ask yourself, why did I say yes? Was it kindness? Or was it fear? Be honest. No judgment. No criticism. Just awareness. Because awareness is the beginning of freedom. When you see the pattern, you can change the pattern. The goal isn't to become someone who never helps. The goal isn't to become cold. The goal isn't to become selfish. The goal is to become someone who helps from choice, rather than obligation. Someone who gives because they want to, not because they fear saying no. That version of you is more generous, more authentic, and surprisingly, more respected. Because people trust boundaries. They trust clarity. They trust honesty, even when they don't always like it. Chapter Reflection. Today, you're learning something different. You're learning that guilt is not always a warning sign. Sometimes, it's simply evidence that you're growing. Every meaningful boundary will feel uncomfortable before it feels natural. And every time you survive that discomfort, you teach your mind a new lesson. I can disappoint someone and still be a good person. I can protect my energy and still be kind. I can say no and still be worthy. In the next chapter, we'll uncover a hidden truth that keeps people trapped for years. The difference between being kind and being available. Chapter 3. Kindness is not availability. Many people believe they are being kind, but if they look closely, they're actually just being available. Available all the time. Available to solve every problem. Available to answer every message. Available to handle every emergency. Available to carry burdens that don't belong to them. At first, this feels noble. It feels responsible. It feels generous. But eventually, something strange happens. The more available you become, the less energy you have for your own life. Your goals start waiting. Your health starts waiting. Your peace starts waiting. Your dreams start waiting. Everything important gets postponed while you continuously respond to everyone else's priorities. And deep down, you begin to wonder, when does my life get its turn? Society often praises sacrifice. The person who never rests. The person who is always helping. The person who never says no. The person who gives until there's nothing left. But there's a problem. A candle cannot light other candles forever if it never gets replenished. Eventually, it burns out. And burnout doesn't happen in a single day. It happens gradually. One unnecessary yes at a time. One ignored need at a time. One broken promise to yourself at a time. Until exhaustion becomes your normal state. Imagine owning a house with no doors. Anyone could walk in, anytime, without permission, without notice, without limits. Would you call that generosity? Or would you call that chaos? Your time and energy work the same way. Boundaries are the doors of your life. Without them, everything becomes accessible to everyone. And eventually, you lose control over what enters and what stays. Many people aren't overwhelmed because life is difficult. They're overwhelmed because too many people have unrestricted access to their energy. Here's something important to understand. People naturally adapt to whatever access you provide. If you always answer immediately, people expect immediate answers. If you always solve problems, people expect solutions. If you always rescue others, people expect rescuing. It's not because they're evil. It's because humans adapt to patterns. And if you've spent years teaching people that you're always available, they begin to see that availability as normal. The moment you create a boundary, it feels unusual. Not because you're wrong, but because the pattern is changing. Think about airline safety instructions. Before helping others, you're told to put on your own oxygen mask first. Why? Because if you lose consciousness, you can't help anyone. The principle applies to your life. Many people spend years trying to save everyone else while suffocating themselves. They ignore stress, ignore exhaustion, ignore emotional fatigue, ignore burnout, and eventually, they have nothing left to give. Self-care is not the opposite of helping others. It is what makes helping others sustainable. Let's do a quick exercise. Ask yourself, who has access to my time? Who has access to my attention? Who has access to my emotional energy? And most importantly, have they earned that access? Or did they simply take it because I never established limits? This question can be uncomfortable, but it reveals exactly where your energy is leaking. From today forward, begin sorting requests into 3 categories. Category 1: Essential. These align with your values, your responsibilities, and your priorities. These deserve serious consideration. Category 2: Optional. Helpful, but not necessary. You can choose these based on your current capacity. Category 3: Draining. These consistently leave you exhausted, resentful, distracted, or overwhelmed. These require stronger boundaries. Most people treat every request like Category 1. That's why they feel exhausted. Everything becomes urgent. Everything becomes important. Everything becomes their responsibility. But the truth is, it isn't. Imagine your energy is a bank account. Every morning you wake up with a limited amount. Not infinite. Limited. Now imagine spending 90% of that energy on other people's priorities. What's left for your own goals? Your health? Your growth? Your family? Your future? Nothing significant. This is why successful people protect their calendars so carefully. Not because they don't care, but because they understand something most people miss. Every yes spends energy. And energy is one of life's most valuable resources. Healthy kindness sounds like, I'd love to help, but I can't today. I understand what you're going through. I care about you, but I don't have the capacity right now. Notice something. The kindness remains. The boundary remains too. This is what many people fail to understand. Boundaries do not eliminate compassion. They protect it. Without boundaries, compassion turns into exhaustion. With boundaries, compassion becomes sustainable. One reason people remain overly available is simple. They hate disappointing people. But disappointment is a normal human emotion. People survive disappointment every day. In fact, many of the strongest people you know became strong because they learned how to handle disappointment. You are not protecting people by preventing every uncomfortable feeling. Sometimes, you are just protecting yourself from feeling guilty. Those are two very different things. Something surprising happens when you become less available. At first, some people resist. Some people question you. Some people push back. But over time, something changes. People begin respecting your time, respecting your limits, respecting your priorities. Why? Because you are finally respecting them, yourself. The world often follows the standards you establish. If you treat your time as valuable, others learn to do the same. If you treat your energy as valuable, others learn to do the same. For the next 7 days, do one simple thing. Before agreeing to any request, ask yourself, do I genuinely want to do this? Not, will they be upset? Not, what will they think? Not, how can I avoid feeling guilty? Simply, do I genuinely want to do this? You may be surprised by how many automatic yes suddenly become conscious decisions. You are not becoming unavailable. You are becoming intentional. There is a difference. Unavailable people disconnect. Intentional people choose carefully. Unavailable people avoid responsibility. Intentional people protect priorities. Unavailable people shut people out. Intentional people decide who and what deserves access. The goal is not to withdraw from life. The goal is to participate in life by choice, rather than by pressure. Chapter Reflection. For years, you may have believed that being a good person meant always being available. But availability and kindness are not the same thing. Kindness is an act. Availability is a boundary decision. You can be deeply caring without being constantly accessible. You can be supportive without sacrificing yourself. You can be generous without abandoning your own needs. And perhaps most importantly, you can help others while still protecting your own life. In the next chapter, we'll explore one of the most powerful skills in self-mastery: how to say no without guilt, without conflict, and without unnecessary explanations. Chapter 4: How to say no without guilt, conflict, or endless explanations. For many people, the hardest part of saying no isn't making the decision. It's communicating it. You finally decide that you don't have the time, you don't have the energy, you don't have the capacity. But when the moment comes to actually say those words, panic appears. You start explaining. You start justifying. You start defending your decision. You give a 5-minute answer to a 1-word question. And somehow, by the end of the conversation, you've talked yourself right back into saying yes. If you've experienced this, you're not alone. Most people don't struggle with boundaries. They struggle with delivering them. When we feel guilty, we often try to earn permission to say no. Instead of simply communicating a decision, we build a case. We explain every detail, every reason, every circumstance, every excuse. Because deep down, we're hoping the other person will validate us. But here's the problem. The more you explain, the more opportunities you create for negotiation. If you say, "I can't," the conversation is usually short. But if you say, "I can't because I'm tired and I have a few things to do, and maybe later if my schedule changes," now the other person sees openings. They see possibilities. They see room to persuade you. Your explanation accidentally becomes an invitation. One of the strongest forms of communication is clarity. A boundary doesn't become stronger because it's longer. It becomes stronger because it's clear. For example, "Thank you for thinking of me, but I won't be able to." Simple, respectful, complete. Notice what's missing. No apology for existing. No detailed defense. No attempt to convince them that your decision is valid. Because healthy boundaries don't require a courtroom argument. Many people believe If they just understood my reasons, they would accept my boundary. Sometimes that's true. Often, it's not. The deeper issue is that you want them to agree. You want them to approve. You want them to understand completely. But those things are outside of your control. One of the most freeing realizations in life is understanding that your responsibility ends with honesty. It does not extend to managing every emotional reaction. Whenever you're unsure what to say, use this simple 3-part formula. Appreciation, decision, closure. Thank you for asking. I won't be able to help this time. I hope it goes well. That's it. No drama. No conflict. No unnecessary explanation. Many people associate directness with being rude, but they aren't the same thing. Rudeness is disrespect. Directness is clarity. A person can be kind and direct at the same time. In fact, directness is often more respectful than ambiguity. Think about it. Instead of saying no clearly, people often avoid messages, delay responses, or make excuses. That creates confusion. Clarity might feel uncomfortable initially, but confusion creates far more problems in the long run. Every unnecessary yes creates a hidden no. If you say yes to something you don't want, you're automatically saying no to something else. No to rest. No to your family. No to your goals. No to your health. Every commitment occupies space. So, the next time you feel pressured to say yes, ask yourself, what important thing will I be saying no to if I agree to this? That question changes everything. Let's be realistic. Not everyone will accept your boundaries gracefully. Some will push. Some will question. Some will try to negotiate. This doesn't mean your boundary is wrong. It simply means they are adjusting to a new version of you. Imagine you've always left your front door wide open. One day, you install a lock. Some people might be surprised. Some might even be annoyed. But that doesn't mean the lock is inappropriate. It means the expectations are changing. When someone keeps pushing, use the broken record technique. Calmly repeat your boundary without adding new explanations. I understand, but I won't be able to. They push again. I understand, but I won't be able to. They push again. I understand, but I won't be able to. You're not arguing. You're not defending. You're not attacking. You are simply holding your position. And most people eventually stop when they realize the answer isn't changing. Imagine someone you deeply respect. A mentor. A leader. Someone grounded. Now, imagine that person saying, I can't commit to that right now. Would you think they were being selfish? Probably not. You'd think they were being responsible. So why do you allow them the right to have boundaries, but deny yourself that same right? The standard must apply to both of you. Starting today, practice saying small no's. Decline something unnecessary. Delay an automatic commitment. Protect 1 hour of your own time. Why start small? Because confidence with boundaries develops through repetition. Just like a muscle, the more you use it, the stronger it becomes. They understand something vital. A boundary is not a rejection of other people. It is a commitment to living honestly. And honest people sometimes say no. Not because they don't care, but because they do. They care about their energy, their values, their purpose, and their future. Chapter Reflection. The ability to say no is not about finding the perfect words. It's about accepting that your decision does not require universal approval. You can be respectful without over-explaining. You can be kind without surrendering your boundaries. You can be compassionate without abandoning yourself. The more clearly you communicate your limits, the more freedom you create. In our next chapter, we'll explore one of the deepest fears behind people pleasing, The lingering fear that if you stop saying yes, the people around you will stop liking you. Chapter 5. The fear of losing people when you start saying no. There is a moment that quietly scares most people. It doesn't always come with panic. Sometimes it comes with a subtle, heavy hesitation. You're about to say no. And then a thought appears. If I refuse, will they still like me? If I stop agreeing, will they still include me? If I set boundaries, will I slowly lose these people? So you pause. You soften your answer. You say yes again. Even when your body is already tired of saying it. Even when your mind has already decided the answer is no. Because deep down, you are not just afraid of conflict. You are afraid of disconnection. And that fear is powerful enough to override your logic, your energy, and your self-respect. Let's be honest about something most advice ignores. You are not afraid of saying no. You are afraid of what that no might cost you. And that cost feels personal. You're not thinking about boundaries in abstract terms. You're thinking about specific faces, specific relationships, specific memories, people you laugh with, people you've helped, people who expect you to be there. And your mind whispers, don't risk it. So you sacrifice yourself quietly, not because you don't know better, but because connection feels like survival. For the human nervous system, being excluded once meant danger. Isolation once meant vulnerability. So over time, your brain learned a simple rule. Stay connected at all costs. Even if that connection is built on overgiving. Even if that connection drains you. Even if that connection is not balanced. So when you start saying no, your nervous system reacts as if something is being lost. Not just a favor, but your sense of belonging. That is why guilt feels so physical sometimes. That heavy chest. Those racing thoughts. That uncomfortable urge to fix it immediately. It's not weakness. It's just your wiring. Here is the truth that most people only realize much later in life. Saying yes does not guarantee connection. And saying no does not automatically destroy it. What saying yes often guarantees is this: you remain useful. There is a difference between being useful and being valued. Useful people are contacted when they are needed. Valued people are respected, even when they are unavailable. And over time, life quietly reveals which one you have been in certain relationships. Every relationship eventually reaches a moment of truth. You become unavailable. You become tired. You become honest. You become human. And in that moment, the relationship either adjusts or it resists. Some people will understand you immediately. Not because they are perfect, but because they have also experienced limits. Other people may react differently. Not always with anger. Sometimes with silence, distance, subtle withdrawal. And that is where most people panic and return to their old patterns. But here is the uncomfortable clarity. You are not losing people because you said no. You are simply seeing how people respond when you stop overgiving. Let's bring this down to something real. Think of the relationships in your life like doors. Some doors are open both ways. Trust flows naturally. Respect flows naturally. Space is mutual. But some doors only open one way. You are expected to be available. But your absence creates discomfort for others. That's not always intentional. But it is revealing. And the moment you start setting boundaries, you begin to see which doors were mutual and which ones were conditional. When you start saying no for the first time, something subtle happens. You don't just feel guilt, you feel grief. Because you are letting go of an old version of yourself. The version that was always available, always agreeable, always easy to reach. And that version had a sense of belonging, even if it was costly. So when you change, there is a quiet emotional resistance. Not because the new version is wrong, but because the old version was familiar. And to your brain, familiarity feels like safety. Instead of asking, will they still like me if I say no? Ask this, do they still respect me when I am not giving them something? Because liking is emotional. Respect is structural. Liking changes quickly. Respect is stable. And what you actually need for long-term peace is not universal liking. It is grounded respect. Healthy relationships do not require constant sacrifice to survive. They do not collapse because you rest. They do not disappear because you are unavailable once in a while. They adjust. They communicate. They understand. And if a relationship cannot survive your boundaries, it was never stable to begin with. You are becoming someone who does not earn connection through exhaustion. You do not maintain relationships through overextension. You do not trade your well-being for temporary approval. Instead, you begin to show up differently. Calm, clear, present, but not overextended. And slowly, something important happens. The right people stay. Not because you are always available, but because you are real. Chapter Reflection. The fear of losing people is one of the deepest reasons you struggle with saying no. But as you grow, you begin to understand something quietly powerful. You are not losing people by setting boundaries. You are discovering which connections require you to disappear in order to stay. And in the next chapter, we will go deeper into something most people never question: why your time disappears even when you are not doing anything meaningful, and how saying no reclaims your life itself. Chapter 6: Where your time really goes, and why you feel busy but not fulfilled. There is a strange kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from hard work. It comes from constant interruption. You sit down to do something important, and your attention is pulled away. A message, a call, a small request, a quick favor. Can you just help me with this? And before you realize it, the day is gone. You were busy all day, but nothing that actually mattered moved forward. And at night, you feel something uncomfortable. Not just tired, like your life was full, but not meaningful. If this feels familiar, you are not lazy. You are not disorganized. You are not lacking discipline. You are simply over-accessible. But in reality, most time is not lost in big chunks. It is leaked in small moments. 10 minutes here, 5 minutes there, a quick response, a small interruption, a brief distraction. Individually, they feel harmless. Together, they quietly destroy focus. Because focus is not built instantly. It is built slowly, and it is destroyed quickly. Your brain is not designed to naturally defend deep focus. It is designed to respond, to react, to stay alert to social signals. So every notification feels important. Every message feels urgent. Every request feels like it needs attention. Now, not because it is actually urgent, but because your nervous system treats interruption as a priority. So unless you consciously protect your time, your attention will always be borrowed by the world. Today, availability is mistaken for productivity. If you reply fast, you are seen as responsible. If you are always reachable, you are seen as dependable. If you say yes quickly, you are seen as cooperative. But what is rarely seen is the cost. The cost is your focus, your depth, your mental clarity, and slowly, your sense of direction. Because when your attention is constantly scattered, your life becomes scattered too. Being busy is not the same as being effective. Busy means motion. Effective means direction. You can be busy all day and still move nowhere meaningful. And many people live in this cycle for years. Reacting instead of creating. Responding instead of building. Helping instead of progressing. Not because they are incapable, but because they never protected uninterrupted time. Think of your attention like water in a bucket. Deep work fills the bucket, but every interruption adds a small hole. At first, you don't notice, but over time, you realize something important. No matter how much you pour in, it never feels full. That is what constant availability does. It creates endless leakage. Most people think saying no is about rejecting others, but in reality, it is about protecting your focus. Every yes is not just a commitment. It is a fragmentation of your time, a division of your attention, a quiet withdrawal from your priorities. So when you say yes to everything, you are not being helpful. You are distributing your life into pieces, too small to build anything meaningful. You may think you control your day, but in reality, your day is often shaped by external demands. If someone needs something, you respond. If something appears urgent, you adjust. If something comes up, you shift. This creates what we can call an invisible schedule, a schedule you never designed, but still follow. And over time, your real goals become, whenever I get time, which usually means never. When boundaries are weak, something subtle happens. Low-value tasks expand. High-value tasks shrink. Small requests become urgent. Important work becomes optional. This is called priority inversion, and it is one of the main reasons people feel stuck in life. Not because they don't know what matters, but because what matters never gets uninterrupted space. Let's make this practical. Take a moment and imagine your ideal day. Not perfect, just focused. In that day, identify one 60 to 90-minute window where you do nothing except one meaningful task. No messages, no interruptions, no switching, just one direction of focus. Now ask yourself, what usually breaks this window? Be honest. It is rarely emergencies. It is usually small interruptions you feel obligated to accept. This is where your boundaries matter most. Every time you respond instantly, you train people to expect instant access. Every time you say yes without pause, you teach the world that your time is flexible. And slowly, your time stops being yours. Not because people are controlling you, but because you never placed limits around your availability. From today, introduce delay into your life. Not avoidance. Delay. Before responding to non-urgent requests, pause. Before accepting commitments, pause. Before interrupting your own focus, pause. Even a small delay creates something powerful, choice, instead of reaction. And choice is where control begins. There is a version of you that you rarely get to meet. Not because you are incapable, but because you are interrupted before you can become it. That version of you appears when you are not rushed, not distracted, not fragmented, just focused. In that state, your thinking becomes sharper, your decisions become clearer, your work becomes deeper. But that version of you only appears when you protect space for it. You are no longer someone who is constantly available. You are someone who protects focus. You are not someone who reacts to everything. You are someone who chooses carefully. You are not someone who fills time with urgency. You are someone who builds time with intention. And this shift will quietly change everything about your life. Because when you protect your time, you protect your future. Chapter Reflection. Your life is not disappearing because you lack time. It is disappearing in fragments of attention you never fully own. Every unnecessary yes is a small break in your focus. Every interruption is a small withdrawal from your future. But every boundary you create returns a piece of your life back to you. In the next chapter, we will go deeper into something even more subtle: why people feel responsible for other people's emotions, and how that quietly destroys self-respect. Chapter 7. You are not responsible for other people's emotions. There is a specific moment that drains more people than they realize. You say no, or you express a boundary, or you simply choose yourself. And immediately, you feel it. The shift in the other person's tone, the silence, the disappointment, the discomfort. And suddenly, your mind starts working faster than your life. Did I hurt them? Are they upset because of me? Should I fix this? Maybe I should just say yes. And just like that, your boundary starts collapsing from the inside. Not because someone forced you, but because you took responsibility for a feeling that was never yours to carry. Most people are not exhausted because of life itself. They are exhausted because they are carrying the emotional responsibility for everyone around them. If someone is upset, you feel responsible. If someone is disappointed, you feel responsible. If someone is uncomfortable, you feel responsible. But here is the truth that quietly changes everything. You are not the source of other people's emotions. You may trigger emotions, but you do not create them in isolation. Every emotion someone feels is shaped by their expectations, their experiences, their assumptions, and their inner world, not just your action. From a young age, many people learn a survival-based emotional habit. When others are happy with me, I am safe. When others are upset, something is wrong. So your nervous system begins to scan constantly, not just for danger in the environment, but for emotional reactions in people. And over time, you begin to over-identify with those reactions. You stop seeing emotions as information and start seeing them as your responsibility. When you take responsibility for how everyone feels, you stop being honest. You start managing reactions instead of telling the truth. You begin to shape your life around avoiding discomfort in others. And slowly, your decisions are no longer based on what is right for you. They are based on what prevents emotional discomfort in someone else. That is not compassion. That is self-erasure. One of the hardest illusions to break is this. If someone feels bad because of my boundary, I am doing something wrong. But discomfort is not harm. Disappointment is not damage. Silence is not punishment. These are emotional responses, not evidence of wrongdoing. If every uncomfortable feeling meant harm was happening, then no honest conversation would ever be possible. Because honesty almost always creates an emotional reaction first. There are 3 layers to every emotional situation: what you did, what they expected, and what meaning they assigned to it. Most people only see the first layer, but the emotional reaction comes from the second and third layers. Which means, you are not holding the full cause of their emotion. You are only one part of a much larger internal process. After setting a boundary, many people feel a reflex: fix it, explain more, soften it, apologize again, change the decision. This reflex does not come from clarity. It comes from discomfort. And if you act from that discomfort, you teach yourself something very important. My truth is negotiable if someone reacts emotionally. And once that belief forms, boundaries stop being stable. They become temporary. Let's be precise. Compassion says, I see that you are upset. Responsibility says, I must change myself so you are not upset. Compassion can exist with boundaries. Responsibility without boundaries leads to burnout. One is emotional awareness. The other is emotional burden. You can be a good, kind, thoughtful person and still disappoint people. You can care deeply and still say no. You can be respectful and still trigger discomfort. Because people do not react only to your behavior. They react to their expectations of your behavior. And expectations are not your responsibility to manage. Maturity is not, everyone is always happy with me. Maturity is, I can stay grounded even when someone is unhappy with me. That is a completely different internal strength. Because one depends on controlling others. The other depends on controlling yourself. The next time you feel guilty after setting a boundary, pause and ask, did I act with respect and honesty? If the answer is yes, then the emotional reaction of the other person belongs to them to process, not you to absorb. Many people unknowingly carry emotional backpacks for everyone around them. They carry other people's frustration, disappointment, expectations, and silence. And over time, they forget something essential. You are not a processing center for everyone else's emotions. You are a person with your own emotional limits. Instead of thinking, they are upset because I said no, try thinking, they are experiencing disappointment because their expectation was different. This removes ownership without removing empathy. You are still kind. You are still respectful. But you are no longer absorbed into their emotional state. This is what emotional independence actually looks like. Not detachment, but grounded presence. You are becoming someone who can sit with discomfort without collapsing into it. Someone who can say no without over-explaining. Someone who can care without over-carrying. Someone who can remain kind without becoming available to everything. And most importantly, someone who no longer confuses other people's emotions with their responsibility. You are not responsible for controlling how others feel about your boundaries. You are responsible for being honest, respectful, and clear. What they do with that honesty is their emotional process, not your burden. In the next chapter, we will go deeper into something that quietly shapes your entire life. Why people repeat the same overcommitment patterns, and how to finally break them at the source. Chapter 8. Why you keep overcommitting, even when you swear you won't. You've promised yourself this before. Next time, I'll say no. Next time, I won't overload my schedule. Next time, I'll think before agreeing. And for a short period you do better. You slow down. You become more aware. You hesitate. But then, life happens. A request comes in. A situation appears. Someone needs help. And suddenly, you are back in the same pattern. Overcommit. Overextended. Overwhelmed. And quietly, frustrated with yourself again. This cycle is not random. It is not a lack of discipline. It is a pattern that repeats, because it was never addressed at its root. Most people think the issue is overcommitting. But overcommitting is just the final behavior. The real problem happens before the yes. It happens in a split second. A decision you barely notice. A feeling you don't question. A reflex you don't interrupt. And in that moment, your boundaries are not broken. They are bypassed. There are three powerful forces that quietly push you into saying yes. Not always consciously, but consistently. First is your identity. At some point, you were rewarded for being available, praised for helping, appreciated for saying yes, included because you were useful. And slowly, a subtle identity formed. I am someone who helps. I am someone people rely on. This feels positive, but it becomes dangerous when it turns into an obligation. Now, saying no doesn't feel like a decision. It feels like breaking your identity. You say yes to protect the image of who you think you are, even when it costs you. Second is the emotional avoidance loop. Many yes are not decisions. They are escapes. Escapes from awkwardness. Escapes from guilt. Escapes from the discomfort of silence. Your brain quickly calculates. Yes is easier right now. And in that moment, your long-term well-being loses to short-term emotional relief. The decision was not made from clarity. It was made from fear. Third is the speed problem. Most overcommitments happen too fast. No pause. No reflection. No awareness of the cost. Just an instant response. But speed removes choice. When you respond immediately, you are not deciding. You are reacting. And reactions are shaped by habit, not intention. If your habit is to please, you will please. If your habit is to avoid discomfort, you will comply. Look deeper. Overcommitment is not about time. It is about identity and emotion. At a subconscious level, your brain is asking, will I still be accepted if I say no? Will I still be valued if I am not useful? Until those questions are resolved internally, saying yes will always feel safer than saying no. Everyone who learns to set boundaries reaches a breaking point, a moment where they realize, I cannot keep living like this. Not because of one big event, but because of accumulation. Too many obligations, too many drained days, too many broken promises to yourself. That moment is not weakness. It is awareness becoming unbearable. And awareness is where change begins. You don't need stronger willpower. You need interruption. You need a pause between the stimulus and your response. So, here is a simple rule. Never say yes immediately. Not even for small things. Train yourself to say, let me check and get back to you. I need some time to think about it. I'll confirm later. This does something powerful. It brings your decision back into your awareness. And awareness is where control returns. Before any yes, train your mind to ask, if I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? Not hypothetically. Practically. Sleep? Focus? Peace? Personal goals? Most overcommitments survive because the cost is invisible. This question makes it visible. At first, saying no will feel uncomfortable. Not because it is wrong, but because your nervous system is unfamiliar with it. Expect resistance. Expect guilt. Expect hesitation. That does not mean you are doing something wrong. It means you are breaking an old emotional pattern. And all patterns resist change at first. You do not need to become a different person. You do not need to become colder. You need to become more conscious. Because the problem was never kindness. The problem was unconscious kindness. Kindness without limits. Kindness without awareness. Kindness without a pause. Shift your internal process. Move from an old pattern of instant yes, later regret, and eventual resentment to a new pattern of pause, awareness, evaluation, and an intentional choice. The goal is not to say no more. The goal is to say yes consciously. You are no longer someone who automatically agrees. You are someone who evaluates. You are no longer driven by urgency. You are guided by clarity. You are no longer reacting to others' needs first. You are aligning with your own capacity first. This shift changes everything. Because when you stop reacting, you start choosing. You do not overcommit because you lack discipline. You overcommit because your decisions are made too quickly, too emotionally, and too unconsciously. But once you introduce awareness into the moment before the yes, the entire pattern begins to break. In the next chapter, we will explore something even deeper: how to build boundaries that feel natural, not forced, so that saying no becomes a calm identity, not a stressful decision. Chapter 9: Building Boundaries That Feel Natural. Right now, you may have already understood boundaries intellectually. You may agree with everything I've said. You may see the patterns clearly. You may even try to say no sometimes. But something still feels off. It feels forced. It feels awkward. It feels emotional. Like you are fighting yourself internally every time you set a boundary. And after you say no, you don't feel calm. You feel tense. You replay it. You question it. You wonder if you did the right thing. So even though you are trying to change, it still feels like effort. This is where most people get stuck. Because they try to apply boundaries as an action, instead of becoming someone who naturally has them. Most people treat boundaries like a technique, a sentence to memorize, a response to practice, a skill to use. But real boundaries are not behavioral. They are identity-based. Meaning, you don't set boundaries in a stressful moment. You live in a way where your boundaries already exist before the situation appears. So you are not deciding under pressure. You are simply expressing what is already true for you. When boundaries feel forced, they usually collapse later. Why? Because they are built on resistance, not stability. You are trying to say no, while still emotionally feeling like you should say yes. So internally, there is a conflict. One part of you wants peace. The other wants approval. And whichever emotion is stronger, in that moment, wins. That is why consistency is hard at the beginning. Not because you are weak, but because your identity is still divided. Healthy boundaries do not feel emotional. They feel neutral, not aggressive, not guilty, not defensive, not excited, just clear. For example, I can't do that. Not, I hope you understand. Not, I'm really sorry, but. Not, I feel bad saying this, but. There are two internal operating systems. The people-pleaser system asks, what do they want from me right now? The self-director system asks, what aligns with my capacity and my priorities right now? People-pleasing reacts outward. Self-direction evaluates inward. And the difference between these two systems determines your entire life experience. Even when you say no correctly, you may still feel guilt. Why? Because guilt is not always about wrongdoing. Often, it is about an identity mismatch. Your actions are changing faster than your self-image. So part of you still believes a good person would say yes. And until that belief changes, guilt will appear, even when your boundaries are healthy. To make boundaries natural, you must repeat one shift. I am not becoming someone who says no. I am becoming someone who respects capacity. This is subtle, but powerful, because it removes emotional conflict. You are not rejecting people. You are respecting limits. You are not being difficult. You are being accurate about your energy. A natural boundary follows a simple structure: awareness of your capacity, clarity of your response, and expression. Said simply, no emotional buildup, no internal argument, no justification spiral, just alignment. I won't be able to take that on. That's it. No tension required. If you want boundaries to feel natural, you must stop deciding under pressure. Start deciding in advance. Decide now. I don't take commitments when I'm already overloaded. I don't respond immediately to non-urgent requests. I don't sacrifice rest for optional tasks. Now, when a situation appears, you are not deciding. You are remembering your rule. And remembering is effortless compared to deciding. When you become calm with boundaries, some people may misinterpret it. They may think you are distant or less caring. But what they are actually reacting to is your emotional stability. They are used to emotional negotiation, to hesitation, to over-explaining. When that disappears, your clarity feels unfamiliar. But unfamiliar does not mean wrong. The emotional shift you must go through happens in stages. At first, boundaries feel uncomfortable. Then, they feel awkward but necessary. Then, they feel normal but slightly emotional. Finally, boundaries feel natural and neutral. That final stage is where true self-mastery begins. Not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped abandoning yourself while you were caring. Every time you honor a boundary, you build something deeper than discipline. You build self-trust. And self-trust is what removes emotional struggle over time. Because when you trust yourself, you don't need to overthink decisions. You don't need to justify choices. You don't need to emotionally debate every yes and no. You simply act from alignment. You are no longer someone trying to learn how to say no. You are someone who naturally evaluates capacity. You are no longer someone reacting emotionally to requests. You are someone responding from clarity. You are no longer someone trying to protect time. You are someone who understands your time is already structured, and you are simply honoring that structure. Boundaries stop feeling forced when they stop being decisions made in emotional pressure. They become natural when they are built into your identity, your awareness, and your self-trust. And when that shift happens, saying no is no longer an event. It becomes a quiet expression of who you already are. In the final chapter, we will bring everything together: how to become someone whose life is no longer controlled by external demands, but guided by calm, intentional self-leadership. Chapter 10: Becoming the person who leads their own life. By now, you understand boundaries. You understand guilt. You understand overcommitment. You understand emotional responsibility. You understand time leakage. You understand why saying no feels difficult. But even with all this understanding, something deeper still remains. Because knowledge alone does not change a life. You can know everything about boundaries and still live reactively. Still say yes too quickly. Still feel pulled by the expectations of others. Still end your day wondering where your time went. So the real question is not, do you understand boundaries? The real question is, are you living from them? Most people live in reaction. They react to messages, react to requests, react to expectations, react to urgency, react to emotions. And a reactive life always feels busy, but it never feels fully aligned. Because reaction is not direction. It is response without intention. Self-leadership begins when you stop reacting and start choosing from a grounded center. Self-leadership is not control. It is not rigidity. It is not isolation. Self-leadership is the quiet ability to pause before responding, to evaluate before committing, to align before agreeing, to protect before pleasing. It is the ability to ask, is this aligned with the life I am building? Not, will this person be upset? Not, am I avoiding guilt? But simply, is this consistent with my direction? Without self-leadership, life becomes accidental. You don't design your week gets filled. You don't choose your priorities, they get overridden. You don't protect your energy, it gets distributed. And over time, something painful happens. You become busy, living a life you never consciously chose. That is not a failure. That is just the absence of direction. Everything changes when you accept one truth. No one is responsible for designing your life, except you. Not family, not friends, not colleagues, not society. Only you. This realization can feel heavy at first. But it is actually liberating, because it returns the power to where it belongs, to you. From today onward, there is one question that quietly becomes your compass. What kind of life am I building with this decision? Not in theory, in reality. Every yes builds a structure. Every no removes the noise. Every choice either aligns you or distracts you. And when you start thinking this way, decisions become simpler. Not easier emotionally, but clearer mentally. There is a version of you that does not rush, does not panic, does not over-explain, does not seek approval before choosing. That version of you already exists. But it is often drowned out by urgency, by guilt, and by external pressure. Self-leadership is not creating that version. It is removing the noise, so you can finally hear it. Most people think boundaries are about protecting themselves from others. But at a deeper level, boundaries are about designing your life. They determine what enters your time, what stays in your attention, what shapes your identity, and what drains or builds your energy. Without boundaries, life is reactive chaos. With boundaries, life becomes intentional structure. There is a moment in personal growth when something shifts internally. You no longer need emotional intensity to make decisions. You don't need guilt to guide you. You don't need anxiety to warn you. You don't need burnout to force change. Instead, you begin to operate from calm awareness. You see clearly. You choose calmly. You act intentionally. Before ending your day, ask yourself, did my actions today reflect the life I want to build? Not, Did I please everyone? Not. Was I productive enough? But, was I aligned? Over time, this question reprograms your decisions. Because what you reflect on, you begin to correct. You are not becoming someone who says no more often. You are becoming someone who no longer lives from pressure. You are not becoming less available. You are becoming more intentional. You are not becoming distant from people. You are becoming closer to yourself. And from that place, every relationship becomes clearer. Every decision becomes lighter. Every day becomes more yours. A life without boundaries is not a life of freedom. It is a life of reaction. But a life with boundaries is not a life of restriction. It is a life of direction. And direction is what transforms existence into purpose. If you have listened this far, something inside you is already changing. Not loudly, quietly. Because awareness does not shout. It settles. And from that settled awareness, a new identity begins to form. The identity of someone who does not live by pressure, but by choice. Someone who does not say yes automatically, but intentionally. Someone who does not abandon themselves to be accepted, but chooses themselves and becomes grounded in it. From today onward, your life does not need to be a reaction. It can be a direction. And every no you learn to say, with calm clarity, is a yes to the life you are finally building.